Ai리서치 센터에서 알아보는 대가이픽 시간입니다. 오늘 살펴볼 투자의 대가는 이 워런 버핏의 스승인 필립 피셔의 아들이자 수십주를 운용하는 켄 피셔입니다. 그는 우리가 잘 알고 있는 PSR의 창시자이죠. 이 PSR은 주가를 주당 매출액으로 나눈 것으로 매출액 성장 대비 저평가된 종목을 찾을 때 활용하곤 합니다. 자세히 살펴보시면 주가 매출액 비율이 1 이하이며 유동자산이 유동부채의 2배 이상이고 3년 연속 순이익 흑자를 내는 기업들이 주로 뽑히곤 하는데요. 이를 컨트롤 우리 시장에 적용시켜 보겠습니다. 오늘자 종목으로는 삼영무역과 쿠쿠홀딩스, 롯데케미칼, 오리온홀딩스, 한국하이어앤테크놀로지가 있는데요. 첫 번째 종목들 하나하나 살펴보도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 첫 번째는 이 화공약품의 판매 사업과 안경 렌즈 수출 사업을 하는 삼영무업이 있는데요. 오늘은 좀 강보합권에서 움직이고 있습니다. 다음은 이 쿠쿠전자의 투자 사업 부문 분할 회사인 쿠쿠홀딩스가 있고요. 현재는 0.2% 빨간불 켜내고 있습니다. 또 어제 외국인과 기관의 동반 매도 속에 6%까지 밀렸지만 그래도 2월 들어서는 기관 매수가 강하게 들어오고 있는 롯데케미칼도 자리하고 있고 다음은 음식료주이자 글로벌 백신 기업 큐라티스와 백신 공동 개발을 체결했다고 밝힌 오리온홀딩스가 있습니다. 또 마지막은 국내 최대 타이어 제조업체인 한국하이어앤테크놀로지까지 들어가 있는데요. 현재는 1.4%까지 상승폭을 키우고 있습니다. 저희 한국경제TV에서 직접 켄 피셔와의 화상 통화를 통해 지금 성장주 투자가 왜 필요한지에 대해 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 지금까지 Ai리서치 센터 박소영이었습니다.
올해 글로벌 증시는 연초부터 격한 변동성 장세를 이어가고 있습니다. 지금이 투자 적기라는 의견도 있지만 일각에서는 본격적인 하락장을 시작하지도 않았다라는 분석이 나오는데요. 공감하시나요?
No, I have thought from late last year, as I've written many times in many places, that this is going to be a year with a very volatile first half and will be emotionally challenging for people. I didn't particularly at all anticipate that January would start as rugged as it did in any regard. But I think the back half of the year will be strong. I think it's a perfectly fine year. And the more people become frightened and the more people forecast that it'll be a bad year, that'll probably be a crash and all those kinds of things, actually the more bullish it is.
시장에서는 성장주에서 가치주로의 사이클 전환이 시작됐다는 평가가 있습니다. 회장님께서는 어떻게 보시는지 또 조언해 주실 투자 전략이 있을까요?
So I think a big head fake, that's a mistake, is this thing that went on over the course of last year and to some extent the year before, where investors started increasingly piling into so-called value stocks. There's this notion that the growth stocks had led too long, which is largely true, and that there should be a rotation into value. In this period, value has become too popular, in my opinion. Growth stocks' weightings have been cut very harshly and are at low levels historically. Having had great prior years, we're now seeing that being unwound, and I'm going to say to you that I think the back half of the year, the place to be careful is people trying to buy cheap stocks, thinking that cheapness by itself will be paid for and will be rewarded. I don't think that will be the case. I think the value stocks and the cheapest things will end up being sort of that which you get what you pay for and you're not paying for much, so you don't get much.
그렇다면 회장님께서는 투자할 종목을 어떻게 찾으시나요?
I think this is really easy. I think this period is going to be the ones that are the big, easy to identify, high quality, not overly speculative growth stocks. And that's not just in technology, that's in categories outside of technology like consumer luxury, like an LVMH that has great fat gross margins, fat operating margins, gross operating margins, sales minus cost of goods sold, is really in many ways the mother's milk of business. It's that which lets you have fat gross operating profit margins, which lets the firm pay more in marketing, sales, R&D, even in interest if it wants to finance acquisitions. And those big fat gross operating profit margin companies that are also big and high quality, they're easy to identify and they'll do very well in the back of this year.
포스트 코로나 시대에 어떤 변화가 다가올 것이라 예상하시는지 궁금합니다. 엔데믹에 맞춰서 구상하시는 투자 전략이 있을까요?
So first, we're actually at the cusp of the post-pandemic era right now.
Right.
In much of the world, we're already moved into an endemic life. Where I am right now in Texas, it is not pandemic, it's endemic. And that transition's already occurred. And there's places in the world that are still in pandemic, but all of that is going away as 2022 progresses. In the longer term, the driving feature that I think is very hard for people to get in their bones is that the inherent nature of capitalism is to keep coming up with uses for technology that create products people want that they can't envision today that change their life. So, for example, a perfectly obvious thing during pandemic has been the rise and evolution of Zoom.
That's right.
And we all know that. But the concept of miniaturization and fitting more electronics into tighter spaces is going to be important over the course of this next business cycle in terms of creating transformative products that will allow us to do a lot of things on a much smaller and closer to us scale as we go through life. And again, all of that will accrue heavily to the areas that you could think of as software as services. And I believe, differently than a lot of people believe, that there is no need for the big tech companies to be broken up because there will be smaller software as services companies that will be disruptive in that field.
That's awesome. We covered a lot today. Thanks once again for sharing your insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. You do a great job, Trish. I appreciate your interest in me. Thank you.